Perfect. All right. So here's kind of the format of today. The purpose of this was to take all of the information that all of you have been gathering over the last couple of weeks and months, and we'll continue to gather moving forward and be able to have that conversation with our clients. And Delisha and I have been in a lot of conversations about this. For those of you that know Delisha well, you know her passion for good communication with our clients and able to support them. And so this is where we came up with this concept. Of making sure we're having conversations and having, we don't want to use the word script, yet we do want to know what exactly to say. And so these are going to be more conversations, and we're going to be very specific on this series. So this week, as we've said in the post, we're going to be covering the certain part of the buyer agency agreement. So I'm going to let Delisha kind of lead up into this, but I did want to do a couple of housekeeping items on this. Today is specifically about the conversation. Today is not about the details of the changes or anything like that. So the assumption in today is that you're familiar with the changes, and now you want to be better at how to communicate said changes to your clients. One of the things that has come up, and I'm going to do a shameless plug, and we're going to send some information out. We are continuing Friday foresights. So for every Friday at noon, at 11, we are going to continue that. It is going to be via Zoom. We've decided to move it Zoom versus physical location for now, just so everyone can jump on. And that's going to become more topic specific. And the one we're going to talk about this week that's really come up is the difference between compensation and commission. There's a lot of confusion on that I think Ernest and Delisha will kind of work through a little bit today. But we've realized that when we're talking to, in the specific situation, when we say, compensation and concessions, the difference between the two of them, a lot of times we're assuming now we're just calling compensation a concession, and we're not. So mark your calendars for Friday at 11, because we're going to go through that. And then we'll have question and answer at the end. And because we're doing this based on this specific topic, if there are any questions that are off topic, we're just going to ask that you pause those or pin them and put them in the chat box. And then we'll follow up with you on those specific questions just so we can have the highest and best use of this time. So that's it for me. I'm going to fade into the background so the two superstars can take over, but I will be here helping in any way I can. So Jai, if you want to unspotlight me, I'll get out of their way.
Leave the spotlight on, Jai. So thank you, Joseph. So I think it's important first to be aware and put ourselves in the shoes of the consumer just for a second. And let's think about what concerns they have. The consumer is concerned about the stock market. The consumer is concerned about the economy and inflation. The consumer is concerned about interest rates. The consumer is concerned about the election. The consumer is concerned about potentially having to pay as a buyer now. And the consumer is concerned about their home values. And very presently, the consumer is concerned about flooding, tropical storms. So as we approach this and any discussion moving forward, let's remember that while we as an industry may be a little freaked out right now, so is the consumer. Let's also remember that the main focus of being a real estate agent does not change. Our job is to be a fiduciary, which means that we must act in the best interests of our clients and not our own interests. This includes providing our clients with the information that they need in order to make the best decision for themselves and for their families. So can we agree to remember those things moving forward? Awesome. So as you know, the new rules are in effect as of August 5th. All buyers must sign a written agreement, whether it's transactional or agency, agreeing to whatever the negotiated fees will be and who will pay them. So guess what, y'all? This is not a new rule. As buyers agents, we've always been in control of what we were getting paid, and we were always supposed to have a signed agreement prior to showing. We just chose not to have those conversations with our buyers. In our MLS, if an agent is showing houses without a signed agreement, it is a violation and they will be fined. Participants will be fined $500 for the first offense and $750 for the second. I'm just putting it out there because these fines came out a few days ago. So moving on, I am absolutely delighted to introduce Ernest Bovan, who I've had the pleasure of working with for a few years now. He's a lifelong student of the market and is consistently and constantly finding ways to improve his systems, his mindset, and his service. His thoughtful approach to his business has resulted in a 100% referral-based business, which is what we all strive for. So Ernest, welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here. It's exciting.
So I have a few questions for you. First off, how long have you been in the business?
I'm in my 10th year as a realtor.
Okay. What's your favorite thing about being an agent?
It's not boring. It's different every day.
Your business is certainly not boring, so I can attest to that. All right, what's your least favorite thing about being an agent?
Some of the people,
Okay.
but I figured out a while back that I could fire them, so that works out well.
Perfect, that's true. What is something not a lot of people know about you?
Something a lot of people don't know about me. Well, until today, a lot of people didn't know I had a mob hat. But let's see, I've got 3 kids. My oldest is 40, and I'm going to be a grandfather in October.
Awesome, congrats. What's your favorite food?
I don't discriminate.
Oh, jeez. All right, so the most important question of all, how many hats do
Just
you have?
don't me. Huh?
How many hats do you have?
Fedora type hats, 15. And
Okay,
then I've got a bunch of baseball caps and odds and ends.
perfect. All right, thank you for that speed round of random questions. Okay, so today's focus is going to be on page 2, part A of the buyer's agency agreement. We're going to focus solely on being able to explain the brokerage fee under A. We will not be going into B on today's call. Ernest and I will be moving through part A as we would with a buyer. Please note that Ernest and I have already had our buyer strategy sessions with our clients where we established rapport, gained trust, and set expectations. Yes.
So just and again, great clarification on there. So we're going into this script right now under the assumption that they've already presented their buyer presentation, right? And so one of the things that we will be adding to the calendar towards the end of August and definitely in September are more classes on the buyer presentation as a whole. Most of you already have that, you know that and that value. Today's focus is specifically on that section of the buyer's agency agreement.
Joseph, do we have a buyer's rep to pull up?
I'm happy to share my screen if you want to do that.
If you would, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Jai, can you spotlight me again? Then I'll do that.
And so I wanted to set the expectation because we're also assuming that everyone has been to at least one forms class. So what we're not going to do is replicate what Lisa has done a beautiful job of explaining over and over the last couple of weeks. So Ernest and I are operating under the assumption that you've been to at least one forms class, whether it was with Lisa at CTAR or watched a SCAR video, and you've been to at least one of Joseph's Friday Foresight classes. Latricia, no, there's no material.
All right.
We've got access
I'm
to
just
the
learning
form.
this. Yeah, I'll also download the form and put it into the chat box. Okay.
So, Ernest, take me through part A on page 2 of the buyer's rep agreement.
Okay, so Delisha, again, we've talked about a lot of stuff and the things that I'm going to do for you and how I'm going to help you find that house. Pretty exciting. But one of the things we have to do is take care of paperwork, and you've seen that form sitting in front of you the whole time. So basically, this is it. It's called a buyer agency agreement. And it basically says that the buyer will pay broker the following, and we're going to initial one. We're going to talk about that. If I'm offered a bonus, I'll have to let you know about that. So under compensation, we're going to initial one, and I want you to initial B. And the reason we're doing B is because it says that it tells you what my fee is. My fee is X dollars. That's what I charge for my services. Okay. And then down here where it says, how am I going to get paid, or where am I going to get that money from? We're going to do B here again. And the reason for B here again is because it's going to come from partly you, but it's also my job is going to be to negotiate with the seller. A lot of times the seller is going to pay all of it, but sometimes they won't. So if they don't, then I've got to negotiate to try and get that difference, or you'll be responsible for that. Does that make sense? Do you have
Yes.
any questions for me?
No.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. So I am now going to move through part A in I guess, more kind of explained out manner. And so we're going to do kind of a deep dive on this. So Ernest, let me begin by restating that real estate commissions have always been negotiable. I get paid based on a percentage of the sale price. My fee is X%. Please initial B.
Okay,
Now moving on to the method of payment, A states that you will be solely responsible for my X% fee. I don't want to put that burden on you, so let's move on to B. B states that should the list agent offer out less than my X% fee, that you agree to make up the difference out of pocket at closing. C states that my X% fee will be paid solely by the seller/list agent. My recommendation to you is option B, and here's why. As we start to view properties, we'll know pretty quickly if the list agent is offering to pay a commission. Best case scenario is that my X% fee will be paid by the seller. You may also fall in love with a property where the seller is offering out less than X% or not offering a commission at all. In order to provide you with the information that you need so that you're able to make the best decision for yourself, here's what I'll do. Any home you are potentially interested in viewing, I will call the list agent well in advance to inquire whether they are offering to cover my X% fee. That way, you'll know eyes wide open whether or not you may potentially be coming out of pocket for any or all of my X% fee. We may also have the option to ask for buyer concessions in the actual agreement to buy and sell, which could be used to cover my X% fee. One of the changes to our MLS is that as your buyer's agent, I can tell you which listings are offering out buyer concessions. Once we have those two pieces of information on the homes you're potentially interested in, you'll be able to proceed with 100% clarity, knowing what your potential out-of-pocket expenses may be on each property. Ernest, please know that I will never stand in the way of getting a deal done for you. And while X% is the minimum we charge for our services, my goal is to save you as much as I can through negotiations with the seller. So Ernest, you may have noticed that I kind of skipped over option C, where it has the seller or listing broker paying my fee and you have no obligation to pay. So may I share with you what concerns me about this? You may not be aware that we have close to 8,000 licensed agents in the Charleston Tri-County area, all with differing levels of understanding about the new changes. Some agents may not be able to fully articulate to their sellers the importance of allowing their agent to offer a commission to a buyer's agent. I have no doubt that we will see 0% being offered out, and I cannot in good faith operate blindly. I can't do it for my business, and I can't do it for my family. As much as I am committed to finding you the right property at the right price, I cannot do so without knowing that my fee will be covered. If in your heart of hearts you know that I am the only agent for you, you can make the decision to only view homes that offer to cover my X% fee. I will caution you that you may miss out on your dream home by doing so. What questions can I answer for you? So y'all see the difference between the two.
Right.
Joseph, I don't know if you have to bleep out my explanation under C.
That sounded good.
No, I mean, and that's the important part of having this discussion is you've got to be able to explain. And what I love about kind of this dialogue, and first of all, good job. Like, guys, let's give them a round of applause, like just kind of running through that. And we're going to put these in document form and send them out to you. But as we all know, this is a moving target. And we're looking at a lot of already the conversations that we've had and that you guys are using and figuring out how we need to audit them and everything. But back to Delicia's question, the great news on this is, or the great part about this is you're literally just explaining like, yes, you can select the option that you don't want to cover anything. And at that point, you would then be able to make the decision whether or not you did or did not want to see a house where you know up front they are not providing compensation to me. But what I loved about what Delicia said, because it is we can't get too bogged down in fear of violating anything so much that we don't actually give the fiduciary responsibility to the buyer, which is my concern on you selecting option C and then not wanting to see homes that may not offer compensation goes exactly to what Delicia was saying, that those sellers just may not be aware that that can be covered through concessions. So let's cross that bridge in negotiations. And then in negotiations, if we find out financially this doesn't make sense for you, then we can make that decision in negotiations.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a big part about it is by checking B, it allows me to negotiate on the client's behalf. Whereas if they check C, they're saying, there's no negotiation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ernest and I were talking earlier that it's our natural inclination is to kind of fumble over and try to fully explain each of these, which I just did, but we're not used to doing that. It's here's what I charge, sign here, initial 1, 3, and 5, and we've been on autopilot. And so I feel like as an agent collective that we're kind of stuck on these different options. And so that's why mine was a longer explanation, because it's like, all right, let's really hash it out. And you'll see that under A of compensation amount, instead of kind of explaining all of it, I said, I get paid based on a percentage of the sales price. My fee is X, initial B. And so I don't have to spend the time to explain or to field a question. Well, if you had a brokerage fee of however many dollars, what would it be? So I kind of hop over that, and that was strategic. And then I get the initial on the top of B before I start explaining the method of compensation. I want agreement. I want to close. I want agreement before I go to the next thing. So that one's off the table. So we only have one decision to make after we've made a decision.
I think one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about, and the three of us talked about yesterday, we have to know, like, again, like Delicia said, Lisa's done a masterful job of teaching us these changes on a mechanical level. And a lot of us, myself, and I'll just talk about me. What I did prior to that is I was like, meh, I'll just kind of just breeze through it. The importance of knowing these forms, quite frankly, a buyer's agency agreement should be your outline for your buyer presentation. I mean, it really could be your table of contents for it. The goal here is to know the nuances of every part of the agreement, but also understand you can give yourself permission that you have your business practice. And what Ernest was saying is his business practice is I get paid a percentage from the sales price. So section A of the first part. And then my recommendation in the way that I want to do business is section B of the second part, that I will try to obtain as much as my fee as possible from both the seller as well as the listing agent. And then in the event I can't cover that, that would be something that would be negotiated between you and I, and we could try to get it out of concessions. And again, that's a business practice that you're welcome to choose and stick to. And I love what Ernest said earlier, and he said it in jest, but I know how it is. It's like you can choose not to work with someone who doesn't want to do it that way. And you may come across people that are saying, listen, I appreciate it. I want zero obligation to pay you anything, regardless of what's happening on here. We could go down an entire rabbit trail of what kind of red flags those are showing. But also understand that this entire conversation today is premised on the fact that you've already done a rock star buyer presentation. If your buyer presentation is only this, that's where your challenge is going to be, is coming at, portraying the value, from the value square class that we've had that Winnie's been doing. We'll do those as well as the buyer presentation classes. Like those have to be the lead up until this. So, the question on was, can a VA buyer still select B? Yes, because VA buyers will be able to cover commissions based on recent changes that they've made. Great question. So,
And a note on that, we all have lenders that always want to take us out to coffee and want to hang out. Like, this is your time to say, hey, lender, how can you help? What is your company offering? What are the max allowables that, you know, VA, conventional, FHA can offer out? Have you as a company, have you all figured out not any loopholes, but any information, any marketing material that you can provide to me that I can in turn provide to my clients? So this is our opportunity to make them work for us. And so that's a good resource. I think that was Lauren that asked that question.
mm-hmm.
Get with your VA lenders, ask those questions.
So we do have a question on objections of the amount. So do you want to go into that now? Like, if you do have a buyer that states, you know, I don't want to be obligated to pay up to, I only want a different amount for training and example purposes only. You know, someone else is going to, I mean, same objections that we've had before, right? How do we handle those differently with the new format?
Ernest?
I guess one question would be, I just try to understand where they're coming from. I mean, in my buyer consult, I already know how much money they have saved and I know what they've got. But then it would be, how would you feel if you found out trying to save commission could actually cost you more in the end? Or what, you know, another question I might ask is, you've got somebody charging you less than what I've done. So what am I offering you that, what am I offering that you don't want to be a part of? Because we talked in my buyer's consult, we've spent a lot of time building the value of why. So I don't usually hear people thinking about that, but I think it would be more of a, did I build the value and what are you looking for? Is it only about how much it's costing you to buy the house? Is that what you're worried about? Or are you worried about making sure that you find the house that's right for you and your family and meets all these needs?
I might ask, what would have to happen for you to see the value in having professional representation during this transaction? Okay, well, you know, I really want to find the house I want, you know, and so by asking that question, then if I haven't already uncovered their pain points and what really matters to them, then that could open the door. I would also ask, just out of curiosity, what makes you feel that paying an agent's commission might not be in your best interest? The biggest challenge that we're going to have, especially on the buyer side, is all of the headlines. I mean, folks have had however many months of headlines, and it's almost like pitchforks. People are rejoicing, like, yeah, we don't have to do this, and you know, the industry is going down, and we know that's not the case. And so a lot of what we need to prepare ourselves for are these objections, whether the information that our potential clients have is correct or incorrect. We need to acknowledge it. And then, okay, well, how do we navigate it? What's your experience with buying or selling a home? Oh, I never have. This is my first time. Okay. So then that tells me their objection is based solely on what's been in the media. Because most folks that have bought and sold, they understand the value, and that won't be the objection.
Yeah, I'm just reading through the comments really quickly, and I think we've definitely got some wisdom from OGs in here. And I was thinking it, and Shakima had said it, and Bill said it, Crompton said it, is don't overcomplicate it. Again, when advice like this is given, it's not diminishing your question or your fear of the objection. I think the best way to handle an objection is to be prepared for it ahead of time, because you're going to cover that in your presentation. And what everyone is saying in the group is we're literally just pivoting the same objection discussion we've had for years with sellers. And honestly, it's been almost harder with sellers because it is absolutely a check that they're writing separately at closing for the most part. You know, buyers is it's been kind of assumingly baked into the cake for them, and now it's separating it so they can see it and have it explained more clearly to them. And Sandra, to your question on compensation agreement and the disclosure of agency, I'll send you an email on that, like kind of a separate question on that one. All right. Yeah, one of the things that Crompton said is have your stats behind you. You know, what kind of list price to sales price ratios are you getting with your buyers? You know, again, same ammo you want to have with your listing agreement. If Ernest sits down with me and I have that question, he says to me, he's like, it's a valid question. And here are some areas that I can show you on pay, like physically how that happened. You know, my average list price to sales price is 95%, where the close rate is 92%, as examples. That's a 2% savings you're already going to get from my negotiation skills. Right. So being able to have those scripts as well.
From a buyer perspective, the conference that I just came back from, one of the focuses was getting real estate agents to realize that their buyer presentation now more than ever needs to be of the same quality and professionalism as the list agent. And that one of the skills we need to get really, really good at moving into this new, it's not even a new market, it's almost like a new industry, is the skill of telling our buyer stories. Literally from first showing properties under contract, closing. And again, what Crompton said, know your stats. And so one of the kind of scripts or phrases after you have enough data is my average days, not days on market, but my average days to find a buyer their home is 13. What's your agent's average days on market for a buyer? The answer is like, what are you talking about, right? And so use the same kind of blueprint that you're using with your listings. Under contract in 48 hours, great. So apply the same thing to the buyer side. Because of my skill, because of my relationship with local agents, because of my negotiating power, I was able to secure a property, you know, off market before you even hit the market. Who's next?
Couple of points made in here. Shenandoah, absolutely right. I mean, the caliber of agents on this call, and because I'm nosy, I'm scrolling through like who's here. This just goes to reiterates the importance of having this conversation, right? And knowing the value proposition, understanding that this is it. I'm telling you, it's they're black and white rules for sure on the change. But at the end of the day, the nuances of what's happening and understanding how these, and that's what, for instance, there's a lot of us that were completely going back to what I said earlier, confusing concession with compensation. So we're going to continue to have these conversations, which is why I love this. Let me read through any questions on here. Lauren had a great script. Have you ever met with 3 contractors for different quotes, selected the lowest price, and had a horrible experience? You know, an opportunity to have those kind of, yep.
It was purposeful to start with this very small section because once we get to the agreement to buy and sell, there are so many different like exit ramps that are a part of that. And then even on the listing side, we know that there's a brokerage that it's a brokerage rule that no compensation is going to be offered out. And so getting this one aspect of this agreement clear and concise and easy for you to be able to explain is important. And I hope that we were able to give you some sort of clarity, some sort of kind of blueprint to follow.
Love it. All right. So real quick, Bill's question. Yes, you can always with your buyer to go renegotiate your commission after you go under contract before settlement. You absolutely can do that. So if you do negotiate this out and it does not end up covering the amount that you had in there, you can at that point agree to not take the full amount of X% that was on there. And vice versa. If you wanted to ask for more, you could always ask for them. Just like any, you can renegotiate really any contract between contract to close. It's just whether you have to have all parties to agree on it, on that. So, all right. So I love it. Let's keep it short and sweet. We're going to have this recorded. I'm going to skim through it from a legal standpoint just to make sure where we are on this. You guys did a fantastic job. I love again, it was very purposeful watching you guys prepare for this. And we'll get it out in text as well. And then we'll continue to do these. So Wednesdays at 1, these are going to be great conversations to have. Everybody mark their calendar for continued Fridays at 11. And we'll talk about the nuances and changes. And then, of course, be it leases, contracts, and forms classes for all the changes that are on there.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.